Big truck, go ahead and roll.
Hello, my name is Rick Houston, and welcome to the Scene Vault Podcast, your source for all things NASCAR history. Presented by Las Vegas Motor Speedway, America's racing showplace.
We'd already won everything, so how could we worry about doing something like this to try to make the car go faster? That was dumb. And anybody that thinks that in that way is thinking dumb. After my crash, I told Judy, let's go home. And she said, no, we're staying. We're going to stay here and support Davey. And it probably was the best directive she ever gave me. I had a lot of good times. And so I prefer to concentrate on the good times.
Today, NASCAR and all of us associated in any way with NASCAR forget its past. That's the day we don't have any future. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Wade.
And my name is Rick Houston, and welcome to the Scene Vault Podcast, presented by Las Vegas Motor Speedway, America's racing showplace and a track that truly cares about NASCAR history. Steve, last night, Jeannie and I were up in Boone for the competition that Jesse's acapella group was in, and I got a Facebook message from our friend Paul Friedrich, and that message said very simply, I assume you have heard about Bobby Allison. And as soon as I saw that message, I just knew what had happened. I went on to X, and there it was confirmed. Bobby Allison died yesterday at the age of 86. And you know, the instant that I confirmed that news, you know what went through my mind. And I'm sure that it's the same thing that went through a lot of people's minds. The day that this episode drops in wide release, it'll be just 3 weeks ago. So the day that NASCAR announced that it had finally credited Bobby with that long ago win at Bowman Gray Stadium, that rightfully brought his career win total to 85. I am so glad that Mike Helton and Jim France were able to visit with Bobby and let him know about that just wonderful news.
Yes, I agree with you, Rick. I'm very happy about that, too. That was a very, very fitting touch. Kind of makes me wonder if perhaps, like me, they might have thought we have to do this fairly quickly. Because Bobby, of course, was not in the best of health. Now, his mind was sharp. I chatted with him many, many times. And definitely, he was all there, let me tell you. Still funny, still opinionated, still Bobby Allison. But his physical condition, was not the best, to say the least. However, when Bobby died, and you told me about his death, the first thing that went through my mind was the Bobby Allison I first met in 1972. My first full year in covering most of the Winston Cup schedule. What a guy he was to me, because I had to introduce myself to him, Rick. That's because, as you well know, 1972 was the year that Bobby teamed up with Junior Johnson and went out to win the Winston Cup championship for the first time in his career, and he went up against Richard Petty. And let me tell you, those two had a war through the entire year, especially at the short tracks. Never seen anything like it. But given that was going on, I had no choice but to introduce myself to Bobby. And he was as nice to me as he could be. For a young motorsports rider like myself, there was nothing else that I could have asked for more than to have the cooperation of one of the guys fighting for the title that year. And that was Bobby, and that's the first Bobby I remembered when you told me.
I had been told that there was a possibility that an announcement of Bobby's 85th win was in the works in conjunction with the Clash next year, which, of course, will be held at Bowman Gray Stadium where that event took place. But when the news came down when it did, so long before the Clash, I kind of put two and two together and wondered whether or not Bobby was going to make it to Bowman Gray Stadium. Because like you said, his health was not the best. He didn't make it to Bowman Gray, but he did know that he had finally gotten credit for what he had wanted for so long.
Yeah, that's true. And I know he was very, very happy about that. But because, Rick, as you know, We've talked to him. Other people have talked to him. You don't even have to talk to him for him to express his opinion about not having that 85th win. But he got it. NASCAR gave it to him at the right time. Believe me.
NASCAR didn't give him anything. They credited him with what he had. You know what? Let's let that go today. All right? Let's just let that go.
Sounds good to me.
But in all seriousness, I am glad that NASCAR made that move when it did. NASCAR takes a lot of heat for a lot of things, and in a lot of cases, rightfully so. But in this instance, they did the right thing. I was so proud that I had already finished the entire notes package for this week, the intro, both segments, and the conclusion. Usually I kind of let the intro go to the last second. It was done. It was finished. But then last night I shot you a text to ask what you thought, and those plans for this episode went flying out the window.
Absolutely. What else could we do? I do believe that what has transpired certainly outweighs anything else we might have presented.
There's no other way to look at it. When a person of Bobby's stature leaves us, I mean, it's only right that we put everything else aside and put together something to honor his legacy. With the interview that I did with Bobby that we ran in episodes 13 and 15 so long ago, and with the massive broadcast archive from Al Kinney, we have put together what I believe is a very special tribute to one of the toughest competitors who ever stepped foot in a Winston Cup garage.
Absolutely. I think you've done the right thing here, Rick, because let's face it, we can sit here and talk about Bobby for days, but I don't believe our listeners want to hear that. We've got the ability to take them to a place where Bobby talks in his own words. And we have those clips from Al Kinney where radio announcers are actually telling us Bobby's accomplishments at tracks like Daytona and Talladega. That's the real story of Bobby Allison. And Rick, that's the story that listeners want to hear.
In cases like this, I think it is so important to remember people as they were in life. His family and friends, they are experiencing a profound sadness right now, but I want to remember the good times. And certainly the good times don't get any better than Daytona 500 victory lane. We've got audio from all three of his Daytona 500 victories, plus his infamous airborne crash at Talladega that forever changed the sport. And Al's archive also includes the Pocono race in which Bobby sustained his career-ending injuries, but I'm not going to include those clips here. Out of respect to him and his family, I want to remember the good times, the best of times for Bobby Allison, and I think that's the episode that we put together. One last thing before we get into the meat of the episode, Greg Biffle put out a video yesterday. He has established a GoFundMe for his relief efforts in Western North Carolina, and I don't know of a better cause that we could possibly support. Do it in memory of Bobby Allison. Send Greg whatever contributions you can. Do it in support of the people of Western North Carolina, and Greg will put it to good use. I don't know the link, but it is on GoFundMe. Go check that out. Go look for it and take care of business there. As a reminder, this show is not yet affiliated in any way with American City Business Journal's owner of the same brand. Dale Earnhardt tried to win the Daytona 500 for a long time, and so did Buddy Baker. Things were looking good for Buddy and his MC Anderson-owned team until he gave way to Bobby Allison with 11 laps to go in the 1978 Daytona 500. Buddy's engine was in the process of giving out. This from MRN and Al Kinney's archive.
Baker looks like he's losing an engine or a tire. Car number 27 is slowing down. Baker's slowing as he comes across the stripe this time. Buddy Baker has lost an engine, I believe. He is down into turn number 1. There's a tremendous plume of smoke now behind his automobile. He's trying to run it out. He drops on the apron of the track by Barney Hall. Baker is right down at the bottom of the groove, Ken. We see the smoke coming from underneath the car. It's hard to tell what it is, but do you not know that this is one heartbroken driver? He's come to Daytona so many times, thought he had it in the bag, and now he's off the pace, just slowly going down the back stretch, back to the tower. Bobby Allison, who has never won this race, looks like he may have gathered it up today and run the perfect race. Here he is coming around. There will be 4 laps to go. Baker continues to slow. Back to Barney Hall. Baker working his way down to the center of the track, candidate. There's little smoke coming from under the car. Something mechanically had put him out of the race. He had run such a super race here this afternoon, had a good shot at winning. He was going to dice it down to the line with Bobby Allison and all the fans here standing waiting for that finish. Now, Bobby Allison, who needs the victory, who wants to win worse than any driver here besides Baker, I'd say, is in good shape to bring it all home if he can hang it together. The sportsman that Buddy is, he waved to his fans as he came by us here in the number 3 turn.
Ken, is a repeat of 1973 when Buddy Baker was leading the race and had an engine expire at lap 194.
This time it's lap 195. They come around a complete lap 197 this time by. Here's Waltrip in a sadly bedraggled Gatorade car, still out here, still trying to gather some ground, get some points back in this great national championship battle. Across the stripe, completing still another lap. 3 laps to go for car number 15, Allison. And we have one car very slow in turn 4. It will be Baker's car, number 27, trying to make it back on pit road. Here's the Buddy Baker MC Anderson car. But for a fresh team, what a superb effort they have given today. And there is just total exuberance down there in the pit of the lead automobile. Ned Garrett, are you still there?
Now, we've moved into victory lane now, Ken, so we're out of their range.
Well, here comes Buddy Baker's car just crawling, creeping down onto the pit road area, onto the apron of the track, now into the pit road, and it's all over for Baker, 2 laps away from winning. The biggest race of his career is Bobby Allison of Hueytown, Alabama, directly in front of him, the yellow, blue, and white Austerlin car driven by Wisconsin's Dave Marcus. And now you begin to see some of the photographers shooting pictures and those lights blazing away at him as he comes by, and they'll really be popping some light bulbs here in the next few seconds as he comes around to the final moments of the race. 27, Baker just slowly crawls down pit road, and some of the crews giving him a round of applause as he comes by. They know how hard he's tried, how much he's wanted to win this race, and he waves to some of those people who he's known and raced against for so many years. But for Baker, this day is over. For Bobby Allison, he is coming around out of turn number 4 to complete the 199th lap. There will be 1 lap to go, and a Thunderbird may be on its way to victory lane. The white flag is released from the hand of Harold Kinder. Down into turn number 1 goes Bobby Allison in command of the Daytona 500. Here is Barney Hall. Well, Allison well deserves to win this one, Ken. He's driven a tremendous race all afternoon here. He's just drafting off the bumper now. Dave Marcus as the Thunderbird comes out of turn number 2, and not a more deserving crew than Bud Moore, who has put so much effort into the racing in the last 2 years. Allison down the back straightaway and heading up to turn 3. And the fans in the back straightaway stands are on their feet, waving to Bobby as he goes through the number 3 turn. Allison has done just what he said he would, draft off the faster cars down the straightaway and use his handling advantage and stability to win the Daytona 500. Here he is, coming to the stripe to win the Daytona 500. The leader of the Alabama gang, Bobby Allison, is successful here today. The chairman of the board, Cale Yarborough, for First National City Travelers Check, is coming across in second position in car number 11. And there is just total enthusiasm from the Norris Industries crew. Bud Moore, after trying for 24 years at Daytona since the last time he won at the beach, is marching to victory lane with the entire organization of that crew from Spartanburg, South Carolina. The 1978 Daytona 500 is history. The winner, Bobby Allison.
Bobby led the rest of the way to score the first Daytona 500 win of his career.
And here we have Bobby Allison, the winner of the Daytona 500, and a very happy fellow he is. Bobby, congratulations.
Thank you, Ned. I am just so tickled I can't see straight. You know how long I've been coming here, ever since I was a little boy. And this is my first major victory here at Daytona. I'm just tickled that Ken Norris and Bud Moore have given me this opportunity, and I'm just thrilled to death. We had problems on Thursday. They kept right on working. We had problems again today. We got pushed into the wall about halfway. They kept right on working. All I had to do was steer it because this thing sure did drive beautiful all day.
It was ironical that the fellow you had problems with on Friday in the qualifying races that you were battling with for the lead right at the end, and that, of course, being Buddy Baker.
Yeah, I really thought that was ironic that it come down to me and Buddy. I was happy for Buddy. You know, I know he's had a lot of frustration, too. We got together Thursday. We come in the garage area. We're pitted nose to nose in there. You know, we had to face each other immediately. Got out of the car and shrugged, and he shook his head, and I shook my head, and we both walked the other way. You know, we both really felt bad about it, and I know later on, somebody told me Buddy said he'd rather run into any car but that one on the track. I know he'd really not rather run into anyone at all. So it came down to just a great race for us, and once again, I just got to say that I owe it all to Ken Norris. Things were looking pretty tough for us. And Bud Moore came to me, and Ken came to me and said, hey, let's go racing. And I tell you, after about 21 years of trying, this is really a thrill.
Bobby, the right side of this Thunderbird is straight. When you got into the wall, did you feel right then that maybe it had ended your chances of winning?
Well, Ned, I was afraid it had because I could smell a tire rubbing, and a tire finally did blow out on me and made an unscheduled pit stop. So I figured that really did signal the end. Also, he hit me hard enough in the left side, it bent the toe in and changed the position of the steering wheel. And that was just something else for me to think about while I was riding along there.
Judy Allison, you were very, very nervous those last few laps. You seemed to have calmed down a little bit.
Well, you said it. But I don't know about calm down or not. I'll tell you what, this is fantastic.
No doubt about it. She summed it up. Fantastic. That's it here in Victor Circle.
A brilliant victory, and it is a new record here in the Daytona Speedway. No one has ever started further back in the field and gone to victory lane.
No discussion of the legend of Bobby Allison would be complete without mentioning the 1979 Daytona 500. It was a story that Bobby told many times over the years. It was his own personal war story, just like so many veterans have told over the years. Here's Bobby from a long ago telephone interview about one of the most iconic races NASCAR has ever run.
It was a pretty good race. I had won the year before, but it wasn't quite as strong for the following year. But it was up front with Bud Moore's Thunderbird, you know, and able to draft pretty good and all. But Donnie and Cale and I got in a spin out somewhere fairly early in the race coming off of turn 2. And Cale and I both lost a couple laps getting stuck in the mud there. And Donnie got going and, you know, got back to the lead of the race pretty quick and was the dominant car all day. Cale could draft him, but he could not pass him. But twice they had a caution flag, and when Donnie would back off for the yellow light, Cale would beat him back to the line and get the lap back. And Donnie actually thought he was more than 2 laps ahead of Cale. Then all of a sudden, right there at the end, he's racing Cale. He still had a dominant car, but Cale could draft him. Then on the last lap, Cale bumped him to, you know, try to make him lose some traction, and Donnie wiggled, and Cale dove under him, and they got together, and, you know, then they crashed down the back straightaway. And, you know, the deal that happened, I wasn't anywhere near him. You know, my crew had radioed me that they were really racing hard and to give them plenty of room if they got to me, but I was a couple laps behind. But, you know, ahead of them on the track by probably a quarter of a mile. You know, I'm coming through, coming off of 2, and the caution comes out, and, you know, I see this crash down there. I slowed down, but my job is to finish the race. I'm coming around for the checker flag, you know, so I went back and I went by and saw that Donnie was getting out of his car, and so I knew he wasn't hurt bad. So I went on, finished the race, came back around and stopped. Stopped closer to Donnie's car. You know, they were probably 50, 75 feet apart on the apron, with Donnie being closer, you know, Cale being further on around the track. And so I stopped kind of parallel to Donnie's car and yelled, did he want to ride back to the garage area? And, you know, he said no. And, of course, Cale started yelling that the wreck was my fault. You know, I wouldn't be my fault. You know, Cale was always a little tough guy, and, you know, I wasn't a tough guy. And so Cale was going to come over and take his frustration out on me. And my version of it, which I'm sure you've heard lots of times, is Cale yelled that the wreck was my fault, and I questioned his ancestry. And he ran toward me, but then stopped 10, 12 feet out from the car and yelled some more, which Cale was, during that period of time, Cale would go to a driver's meeting, and he'd yell at Buddy Baker or yell at Richard Petty or whoever happened to have annoyed him the week before, and it was kind of his nature. And, you know, I thought he was going to stand there and yell, I guess. I suppose I questioned his ancestry a little further. Had his helmet in his hand, and he lunged at me and hit me in the face with his helmet. And, you know, I looked down, and some blood was dripping in my lap. It bloodied my nose and cut my lip, and it hurt. And I was stunned and shocked, and I said to myself, I got to get out of the car and handle this right now or run from him the rest of my life. So I climbed out of the car, and you know, we had a little scuffle there. Now, a lot of the pictures you see Donnie with his helmet in the air. Well, Donnie's saying to Cale, I got a helmet too if you want to fight with helmets. But Donnie and Cale never passed any blows on the thing. You know, Cale and I did the, a little bit of wrestling around there. The safety crews got over there and got us separated and everything. It proved to the world that we were sincere.
If racing was Bobby's number one passion in life, flying was number 1A. He loved to fly, and he loved messing with his passengers, especially if they were rookies on Air Allison. We've actually got at least a couple of Bobby Allison flying stories to share. First up, here's former crew chief and driver Larry Pollard from episode 220.
No, I love Bobby Allison. He's just, him and Judy and Gary Nelson and Gary's wife went, and myself, that for the whole 3-4 days we got. So we get done. We flew out of a place called Yuma, Washington, little old airstrip to get out of Yakima, Washington. And we all had our coffee, you know, we get on the plane and got to go. We got time, we got to go, you know, so we're on the plane. So I said, oh, hang on a second, I'll just drink this coffee. And she goes, no, Judy was sitting there. And she goes, no, it's all right, just hold the coffee. So he starts climbing, and all of a sudden he says, I'm going to do a roll. I said, okay, well, hang on, I'm going to definitely drink my coffee now. And Judy says, it's all right. So he does that roll, barrel roll in that plane, and he does it like that, so the gravity's going up.
Yeah.
Coffee just sitting there perfect as ever, you know.
And this from Norman Negree from episode 292.
Me and him are flying along one day, and I don't remember when this was, but there ain't nobody but me and him. And I said, I want you to do one of them rolls. He said, I can't do that. I said, why? He said, they frown on that on the ground. And so I said, okay. So pretty soon, I said, you didn't tell me. He done it so fast, I didn't know we'd done it. I said, you're supposed to tell me. I wanted to see the whole thing, you know. I wanted to feel it. I felt it, but I'm going, dude, you didn't tell me. He kind of done one of these. Whoop. I thought, what did we just do? And then somewhere else we was flying, and I only flew with him a few times. It may have been the same time. But, boy, all of a sudden, we're flying along. Here comes another plane. They both went this way. He said, wonder what they thought on the ground when they seen that one. I thought, what they thought on the ground? What about up here?
This ain't the Thunderbird.
Yeah. It was just a wow. And it was a small plane. I'm not small, but I mean, it was a plane like his. It wasn't no jet.
So he's playing chicken with another.
No, I don't. I think that he said, I'm on the right. We was right. He said, I'm on the right height. That guy's wrong.
1982 Daytona 500, by far the most controversial of his 3 victories in NASCAR's biggest race. Here's what happened to trigger all the speculation very early in that race.
First caution of the day at Daytona in the Daytona 500. It comes early on lap number 4 for an update again on what might have happened up in turn 4. Let's go to Dave Despain.
Something came loose on one of the race cars, Barney. No doubt about that. It was back 2/3 of the way through the pack. They were running very tight. 14, 15 cars running nose to tail. Either a bumper or, more likely, perhaps a spoiler. A chunk of sheet metal came up over the wheel fence here on the outside of turn 4 and ended up at our feet. It had obviously been run over, which probably accounted for the tire problem. We heard a tire explode very loudly, like a bomb going off, down in the middle of the smoke as the car started to spin and skitter. Obviously, something came off one of the race cars. It affected the handling. It sent somebody spinning, and you saw the rest from up there. The car that lost the rear bumper was Bobby Allison's Gatorade machine. The report from NASCAR officials stationed at turn 4 was that apparently Cale Yarborough and Allison got together, and as a result, Allison lost the rear bumper off his automobile.
Bobby went on to lead a total of 147 laps and completely dominated the event, but he had to stretch his fuel mileage in order to make it to Harold Kinder's checkered flag.
Drafting with Ron Bouchard and with Joe Ruttman, Bobby Allison takes the white flag with the Dygard Gatorade Buick. He heads off to turn one in a four-car pack.
Bobby's got an escort, as you say, Mike. Joe Ruttman is ahead of him. Ron Bouchard tucked in behind, and watching from a respectful distance, Bill Elliott. They do back down the speed just a bit this time by. Allison looking for the checkers.
Bobby Allison looking for his second win here in the Daytona 500. Roars down the back straightaway, drafts off the back of Joe Ruttman, and enters the turn three banking.
One of the big questions here, would it be one of the old guard or a young lion who wins it? This guy's been at it 27 years, and he was definitely the strongest man out here today. Bobby Allison is headed for home.
Bobby Allison out of the banking up in turn number 4, brings the race car right down in the middle of the track as he has all day, crosses the start-finish line, and he will win the 24th annual Daytona 500 for Bobby Allison, his second trip to Victory Lane here.
Victory Lane, as always, was a special and busy place as Dick Berggren tried to get to Bobby for his post-race interview.
Let's check once again with Dick Berggren at Victory Lane.
Well, we're trying to plow our way through to Bobby Allison. There's a big crowd of people here. Bobby's with his wife. We're on our way over to him. His mother just gave him a big kiss and more. Bobby Allison, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
He's just kissing absolutely everybody inside. He's a very, very happy man, obviously. Bobby, were you worried about fuel at the end?
Well, I really was. Gary was telling me to conserve fuel. I was trying to think of what I could do to do that, but I did run easier, and then right there on the last lap, it ran out once, and I think I got in Ron Bouchard's way, but really I was just trying to stay out of everybody's way, and I knew if I could get back around, we'd be okay, and it quit coming in pit road. It's out right now.
Did it quit while you were still on the green flag?
Pardon me?
Did it quit while you were still on the green flag?
No, it sputtered a couple times, but it didn't quit.
This car has run so strong for you here, Bobby. Did you folks do really special things for Daytona?
Well, we really did. I'll tell you what, that Robert Yates built us an engine. Well, in fact, he built a whole truck full of them down there. They just ran super, and I can't say enough for him and his crew on the engine room, and Gary Nelson and all his boys out there in the shop got this car driving so good I can't believe it.
You look tired, are you?
I'm just happy.
You deserve to be.
The bumper, Dick. Ask Bobby about the bumper. Whatever. We talked to Bobby about that mysterious bumper.
What happened? We won the Clash, and we won the 125, and we're sitting on the front row for the Daytona 500. And Joe Gasaway, Bill Gasaway's younger brother, who wanted to have a lot of authority, but it really didn't, but could pull off this kind of thing, came over to us on Saturday before happy hour and said, I caught you guys cheating. You got to move your back bumper 1/8 of an inch. So we had
1/8.
And he made us cut it off the car. I mean, we couldn't bend it or push around. No, we had to cut it off the car and then reattach it. Well, we had a 110 volt wire welder, which did a pretty good job on sheet metal and stuff like that, but it really wasn't what you needed for something like a bumper mount. But we put it back on with that, and it was good enough that it would have stayed had we not got hit. But on that lap, that bumper came off. Cale Yarborough had got into me up in the corner and had hooked his front bumper into my back bumper, and then when he turned and put his brakes on it, pulled my bumper off. Now, he missed the bumper, but a couple guys behind him did not, unfortunately for them. But we'd already won everything, so how could we worry about doing something like this to try to make the car go faster? That was dumb. And anybody that thinks that in that way is thinking dumb.
Hey race fans, John Dodson here from NASCAR Technical Institute. NASCAR Tech is open and enrolling, with classes starting every 3 to 6 weeks. In our 48-week automotive technology program, students learn everything from vehicle electronic technology to diagnostics and drivability. And as our exclusive educational provider for NASCAR, we offer a 15-week NASCAR elective where students learn engines, fabrication, aerodynamics, pit crew essentials, and more. NASCAR Tech also offers 36-week welding and CNC machining training programs so you can choose the path that best fits your career goals. Ready to see how you can get started? Visit uti.edu/NASCAR today.
NASCAR Technical Institute prepares graduates to work as entry-level automotive service technicians. Some graduates who take NASCAR-specific electives also may have job opportunities in racing-related industries. NASCAR Tech is an educational institution and cannot guarantee employment or salary. Bobby Allison finished second in the point standings 5 times, including 1981 and 82, when he came up short against longtime rival Darrell Waltrip. But in 1983, Bobby finally made it to the top of the mountain. He was the Winston Cup champion. How about that, Bobby Allison?
Oh, it was the most incredible achievement of my whole career. You know, it was something that I wanted from day one. I got really close way back in 69, 70, 71, 72. Just kept missing it. You know, got really close and still would come up just a little tiny bit short. By then I was getting old. You know, I was 45 years old. To win the championship was the ultimate achievement in our sport. And to finally get that, it was just super duper.
1987 Winston 500 at Talladega. Bill Elliott sat on the pole that day with a speed of 212.809 miles an hour, the fastest qualifying lap in NASCAR history. Bobby Allison started second that day after putting up a speed of 211.797 miles an hour. Things were going well that day, right up until this.
Trouble as Allison shreds a right rear tire. The car gets up in the air and crashes down onto the asphalt right at the start-finish line. Caution waves immediately by Harold Kinder up on the flag stand, and everybody misses Allison's car. Phil Parsons, Alan Kulwicki, and Richard Petty tangle and collide coming past the caution flag, and Parsons' car slides into Allison's motionless machine.
Now Cale Yarborough and Ron Bouchard get together further down the racetrack, entering turn number 1. They will spin out of everybody's way towards the apron of the racetrack.
A hard crash for Bobby Allison. The car just literally demolished as it slammed into the concrete wall short of the start-finish line. Allison's car has come to rest down toward turn 1. As the field gets through, the emergency crews attend to Allison immediately. Again, the cars involved. Richard Petty got a piece of that. So did Phil Parsons. Bobby Allison coming out the worst of it as he slammed into the wall here. Now the emergency crews are there. And, Mike, there were a couple other cars there also.
Phil Parsons had a piece of it. He was the car that got hit twice. That car came down and spun with Richard Petty and I believe Ken Schrader, and then got into Allison's car, which was just stopped in the middle of the front straightaway. Barney, it looked from here as if Allison cut down a right rear tire. Dale Earnhardt was drafting behind but avoided contact, and then Allison's car got airborne and flew through the air along the straightaway here near the start-finish line. It came down to rest and flipped on the asphalt, finally landing midpoint in the front straightaway. Allison is out of the car. He is okay.
Mike, it did happen exactly that way. It was right straight in front of me. I was looking right at the car, and it popped. The right rear tire just disintegrated, and the car turned sideways. He did fairly good for a minute, and then it started getting airborne, and from then on, it's history.
Allison is okay. He's walking over to the ambulance unaided. He'll get the mandatory trip to the care center. And due to damage to the catch fencing newly installed for this race along the entire front straightaway, the race will be halted under the red flag. The cars will be stopped out on the backstretch, and we will have a delay here while the fencing is repaired along this front straightaway.
According to Bobby, here's what happened.
You know, I was proud of the fact that I was when Elliott was on the pole at 212, I was on the outside pole in a Buick at 211. And I was pretty proud of that. Our equipment was good. Our car was fast. And with the drafting the way it is at Talladega, I got to shuffle and was back in the pack, 4th or 5th or somewhere back there in the lineup, but running good and happy with the car. And my engine blew up. And my engine blew up so bad that a big piece of my crankshaft came out of the car and went under the car, and I ran over it with the right rear tire. That's what jumped the car up into the air. And also blew the tire out while that was happening. But that jumped the car up in the air and made it spin around, and completely out of control, went into the fencing and tore all the catch fence down. And it was quite a ride. I really hung on, but I didn't get hurt any in that. I didn't even get bounced around bad. Just hung on good, and the car was built good. And it finally came to rest, but because of the violence of the crash, my dry sump oil tank had gotten broken, and I had oil all over me and in my face and inside my goggles, outside my goggles, and so I couldn't see.
Yeah.
And so when the safety crew got there, they realized that I wasn't hurt any, but I had to go to the infield care center to get checked out, and they put me in the ambulance and took me the long way around the racetrack. And I asked the guy, I said, how many people are hurt back there? He said, don't worry about it, nobody's hurt. And I thought, well, they're taking me this way, so I don't see what a mess it is back there. And it took me a long way, and we got to the infield care center, and Dr. Hardwick came out there and said, shut the helicopters off, folks, we don't need them. And that was good news to me, because if I didn't need it, that meant nobody else needed one either. So I was at least happy about that.
Bobby was okay. The fans in the grandstands were okay. And that was that for Bobby Allison that day. Or was it?
When I came out of the care center after my crash, I told Judy, let's go home. And she said, no, we're staying. We got to stay here and support Davey. And it probably was the best directive she ever gave me.
Directive. That's a good word for it.
Yeah, I tried to think of really the right description. It definitely was an order. But we stayed. And I was really pleased that we did, and we got to go to Victory Lane and celebrate with them when that race was over. And it was so special. Davey had already won there with ARCA, but was his first NASCAR Cup win of his career, and for it to be there at Talladega at what was our home track and all of the things that you can say was really special.
The 1987 Winston 500 at Talladega was the ultimate case of good news, bad news for the Allison family. But then came the 1988 Daytona 500, Bobby's third win in that event. This time, however, his son Davey was right there, trying to chase him down.
Here's Allison, white flag as he flashes across the start-finish line. Bobby Allison takes him back to turn one. Davey Allison rides right behind him. They've opened a little daylight from third on back. Bobby Allison shows the way on the final lap down into turn number one. His son Davey about a car length back as they lead the pack of 7 cars for the last time off the banking of turn two. Bobby Allison trying to hit the triple here at Daytona this week. A winner Thursday, a winner yesterday, trying for 3 straight. He's a car and a half ahead of his son Davey Allison. Third is Phil Parsons. Fourth is Terry Labonte. Here's Bonnet bidding for fourth. Bonnet makes the move around into the 4th place position. Still, Bobby Allison, your leader. There's Davey Allison to the bottom of the racetrack. Davey Allison tries it on the inside.
One last try for Davey Allison, but he has to tuck back in line just behind his dad, who was a twice winner of the Daytona 500. Bobby Allison wins it for the 3rd time in his career. Right behind him was Davey Allison. Holding on to a tight 3rd place battle was Phil Parsons with Terry Labonte and Neil Bonnet. What a finish as the Alabama gang, Bobby and Davey Allison, take positions 1 and 2. It was quite a finish.
Davey wanted that race more than any other he had ever run or ever would run. Still, he came up just a little bit short.
Right now, let's go down to pit road and Dick Brooks.
Well, the other Allison, I guess. The other day we talked about it going the other way, and if you would beat him if you had a chance, and today you tried.
Yeah, Dick, I tried as hard as I could, but this Ford with this restrictor plate just seems to be a little bit down on power, and Dad's engine was really strong, but he drove a heck of a race. He was tough all day long, and we got behind early, and we caught back up, and we made a run at him, but we did the best we could do, and that was second.
Davey, you've probably been asked this a lot, and you're going to get asked a lot more. Just how hard would you try to beat him?
I used everything I had.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you did. Well, that's Davey. He's looking in pretty good shape. I tell you, this hasn't been a long time since you run a race like that.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to dream of a 1-2 finish, but I dreamed about it being the other way, and that was a tough race, and got to hand it to Dad. He drove a good race, but this Haviland Star Thunderbird's going to be tough for the rest of this year.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. That's Davey.
That was in February. 4 months later, Bobby Allison was involved in another terrible crash, this time at Pocono. He had walked away after his Talladega accident the year before, but this time he did not. The mishap at Pocono ended Bobby Allison's driving career. He was left with injuries that would linger for the rest of his life. Worst of all, the accident cost him many of his memories from throughout his brilliant career on the racetrack. He did not remember the finish with Davey at Daytona. Pocono was just the beginning of a nightmarish stretch that saw him lose his son Clifford to injuries he sustained in a crash during an August 1992 Busch Series practice at Michigan. Less than a year later, in July 1993, Davey was gone as well, the victim of a helicopter crash as he was attempting to land in the infield at Talladega. Bobby and his wife Judy divorced and then remarried. Judy died in December 2015. No matter the pain that remained, Bobby Allison's smile was still there. It was the kind that could light up a room, and did on so many occasions, as he became one of the sport's most consistent ambassadors. If there was a special event, Bobby and his incredible outlook on life were there.
You know, I did have a great career, you know, and we have had a great life in this country. You know, we certainly had the good times, but then we had bad times. And, you know, I think of the big picture where a lot of people have had the bad times that didn't really get to have the good times. And, you know, we did that. We pursued our dream, and we did it as a family, and we did it as individual competitors, and just had a lot of success out there in a great competitive sport going on, and I'm at peace with myself. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm a Christian. My dad was the best Christian man I ever knew, and my mom was right there with him. You know, so that was pretty good for me from that standpoint. You know, to be able to feel like you know, some of these things are out of our control, but some we can influence, and some we can put good effort to, and accomplish some things along the way. And I had a lot of good times, and so I prefer to concentrate on the good times.
Bobby, we love you, man. Godspeed. We're going to miss you.